I think in previous years this has been perfectly acceptable. But when you've got a situation that we've got at the moment in Cornwall, where we have over 22,000 households that are in emergency accommodation, we've got real issues with second home ownership. So it's about how those second homes are used. Having a second property in and of itself isn't the main issue. It's how those properties are used, and they're being flipped from long-term let to short-term letting without any particular legislative changes. And we've got an issue where people are just literally being turfed out because you can maximise your profit on your second home ownership. If you use it as a short-term let, you can get upwards of 5 times more than you can for a long-term let currently. So, why wouldn't people use that advantage to make as much money as possible? But it's not what it's doing is it's killing communities, and people are just being kicked out of their home for no good reason. And these are hardworking people, the same as those people that have worked hard to get a second home.
So, Cath, help me understand. I mean, I've been to Cornwall a few times, lovely part of the country. But often we see Cornwall, your local kind of industries, economies, etc., they're thriving because of people like tourists. So what you're describing here is you've got now a plethora of property that's being used on short-term lets. I imagine it'll be things like Airbnb, so a family in 1 week, a family in the next, etc., etc. Surely that's good for your local economy.
To a degree. So we've only got 12% of our economy currently is dependent on tourism. So if you consider that 12% and how much of the year that's actually putting into the local economy, with an Airbnb, for instance, that those individuals will be coming down. Yeah, they might eat out, but they've chosen to go into an Airbnb because it's self-catering. So the self-catering money would go to Morrison's or Sainsbury's. Other, stores are available. But those people aren't contributing 100% to the local economy for 100% of the year. So it's only during the holiday period. If those homes were owned and lived in for 365 days of the year, those families would be contributing to the economy 365 days of the year. And it evens things out in terms of the other industry that we've got down here. Agriculture is actually our main industry. And Visit Cornwall did some assessment towards the end of last year. And even by 2060, they believe that only 1 in 4 jobs maximum will be attributed to tourism. So it's not actually, we're not as dependent on it as it might seem.
So just briefly, final question to you, I guess. What should happen then? You've got all these second homes. What do you want to happen? Should people be forced to sell them or what?
Well, again, it's about how they're used. So if they're underused, if they're underoccupied, then we need to legislate to make sure that they're used for their primary purpose, which is housing stock. We're not saying no holiday lets. What we're saying is there should be a balance. Currently, we've got a situation where in the north of the county, I'm not going to say where exactly, but because it wouldn't be fair, but I was sent a letter that's been sent out to a local primary school because they're losing a class teacher, and it said exclusively within that letter, we are losing a classroom teacher and classes are being conjoined because of the lack of affordable houses for young families. So if we had legislation, for instance, similar to what's been introduced in St Ives, where new builds are restricted to first home occupancy, that would help. But that's got to be in conjunction with things like planning restrictions that stop people flipping from long-term let to short-term let, with things like getting rid of Section 21, which has been talked about since Theresa May was in power. And also, let's not forget the landlords. We want to protect landlords. So have a good landlord scheme, have support for them if they've got bad tenants, give incentives to landlords to make long-term letting more attractive, so people move back to that. Because anecdotally, currently this year, last year it was 100% bookings in Cornwall. This year it's been reported that only 60% of the holiday lets are actually being booked up. So we've seen that boom, and now we're coming back from that. But it's about supporting landlords to make that transition back into something so they feel safe and secure. And that will give security to those individuals that want to live in rented accommodation.